Are you considering booking a sailing with Regent Seven Seas Cruises and you're trying to figure out what it is they actually include in their prices? If so, let's go ahead and talk about that today. Hey there, travel lovers. It's your trusted cruise and Tauck tour and Africa safari expert Shawn Power here. And what I want to talk about today is Regent Seven Seas Cruises. Now, in the description underneath this video, I will put a link to another video I did where I basically describe the cruising world. I talk about the different categories. And as I talk about in their Regent Seven Seas Cruises, they're at like the top of the cruising world. They're I always call them almost like the pinnacle of cruising. Them, Explora, Silver Sea, Seabourn, Crystal. These are as good as it gets when it comes to inclusions. They include pretty much everything on board. They have some of the biggest rooms out there. And Regent is really, in my experience, right at the top of these guys. I mean, about 50% of my clients who cruise in that category of cruising go with Regent. So I've literally booked millions and millions of dollars of their cruises over the years for my clients. I've been on them a few times myself. So they're very popular. But a question I get all the time is, Shawn, all these inclusions we see on their website, is this legit? Is this real? Do they really include everything? And what you see is almost what you get. There's a couple of things I want to talk about a little bit further, and that's what I'm going to cover here today. So I made a bit of a list because I don't want to, miss anything at all here today. So you're going to see me referring to that. But the first thing I want to talk about is verandas, private verandas, private balconies, whatever you want to call them. The point is pretty much every room on a Regent cruise is going to have a private veranda. Now, their oldest ship, which is called the Navigator, that's going to be going away. They're getting rid of it here. They're retiring it. It's going to another company at the end of 26 or sometime in 26. So the point is very soon, because that's the only ship that still has just an ocean view room without a balcony. But I personally haven't booked that in years. I don't really recommend it for my clients. So every time I book my own clients, they're going to have a private veranda. This is a huge perk. If you've been on the big ships, the Carnivals of the world, the Royal Caribbeans, the Norwegian, Celebrity, Holland America, Princess, those guys, they got their inside rooms, they have the ocean view rooms, and they have the balconies. And you got to pay a lot more to get in the balcony. People want it, but they can't really justify the extra cost sometimes. Point being, if you're looking at a Regent cruise and it fits in your budget, you're almost always going to get a balcony, except for that one exception that I just mentioned. So that's a huge perk to have a private veranda. We all love the sea views and getting the fresh air and have a little bit of privacy from your partner when they're getting ready and those kind of things. So it's great to have the private veranda. Now the next thing is all drinks on board. Whether it's water, specialty coffee, cocktails, wines, beers, whatever you want, it's all going to be included in your price. And this is a nice little perk because, on the big ships, and look, I've been on over almost 100 cruises actually over the years, so I've seen it all. And there's nothing worse than being on a cruise and being nickel and dime to death, the $4 Cokes and the $15 glasses of wine and $4 bottles of water. And as you can imagine, it just gets so expensive after a week or two on board. But Regent includes it all. And we're not just talking like house liquors and stuff, like if you go to some of these, all-inclusives in the Caribbean. We're talking all the, I'm not a real, liquor drinker myself, but, we're talking the Bacardis and the, Captain Morgan's and the, well, actually I do like Bailey's after dinner, and, it's just nice to be able to get a Bailey's after dinner and not have to pay for it. So whatever you want pretty much is all included. There's probably a couple exceptions if you want a 50-year-old Scotch or something really high end, but personally, I've never spent a cent on drinks on Regent. I've never seen anyone personally spend any money on Regent. So for the most part, I don't think you will either. So drinks are included, which is another great perk. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is all meals. And I mean all meals are included on board Regent. When you go on those big ships, I was on Celebrity about a year and a half ago, and myself and my partner, we spent right around, I think it was just over $800 in specialty restaurants. It was so expensive and they were great, don't get me wrong, but boy, it really added up. On Regent, especially the newer ships, they also have specialty restaurants. All their ships have specialty restaurants, but how many depends on the ship you're on. But their newest ones, which are their Explorer and Splendor and Grandeur, they have the Asian restaurant, Pacific Rim. They have is Chartreuse, I guess is the French restaurant, the Steakhouse, Prime 7, Prime 7 I think is what it is. But the point is they're all included. So you're not going to pay $60, $70, $80 like you do on some of these other lines. And they're so good. When I was on my last sailing, I was on board for 17 nights. Now, everyone is guaranteed to get in there one night. I think I ate at those places between the 3 of them 10 nights, because when you're on board, they will, get you in a second or third night if they have space available. But the point is, everyone gets to get in one night, and they're really, really good. No extra money, which is a great perk. Also, room service. A lot of the big ships these days, they're charging like $10 to have room service delivered. I've even seen some big cruise ships where they're charging for certain steaks now in the main dining room. Regent includes all that. And speaking of the main dining room, like the big ships, Regent is going to have a rotating menu every day, and then they also have an everyday menu. Now, on the other companies I've been on, the big ships, they'll have like a steak, a chicken, and a salmon that's available every day, and then their other menus rotate. Well, Regent's everyday menu, I mean, it was fabulous. It was like there was lobster tail on there, there was scallops, there was crab, lamb chops, some really nice, higher end cut steaks, lobster bisque. I mean, it was a huge everyday menu. And then they also rotated, every day another menu. So the point is, not only is the food included on Regent, it's absolutely fabulous in my experience after cruising on them a few times. So meals are included, not gonna have to touch your wallet at all for that. Next up, let's talk about Wi-Fi. These days, a lot of people are like me. They work when they travel. I mean, I travel 4 to 6 months of the year. I have to be online. A lot of my clients have to be online for work. And even if you're retired, you don't work anymore, you probably got the kids and the grandkids you want to be talking to daily. Maybe you want to keep up in your stocks, your favorite sport teams. We all want to be online these days. I've been on big ships where they're charging, I think 15 a day is the least I've ever seen. A lot of them are charging $30, $35 a day. Absolutely ridiculous how much that can add up to for something that's so basic and that we all need, but Regent includes it for everybody. Now, a couple of limitations there. In all the rooms, you're going to get at least 2 logins. So let's say there's 2 people in the room, you get 1 each. You can use it, on your own phone. You can swap between your phone and your laptop. But for some of the higher rooms, from the concierge rooms and above, they're going to give you 4. That's great for me. I usually stay in at least a concierge, if not a penthouse on Regent, and I get the 4 logins, which is great because I need to be on my phone and my laptop at the same time. Same with my partner most of the times as well. So we need those 4 logins. So keep that in mind when you're deciding on your room. There's other reasons to get a concierge as well, which I will talk about in a moment. Most of my clients get at least a concierge or above, and that's one of the reasons to get more Wi-Fi logins. But again, Wi-Fi included for everyone. Amazing perk. Next, we're going to talk about tips, gratuities. I've seen the big ships these days where I think on the low end, they're charging 20 bucks a day. I've seen some now up to $23, $25 a day. When's it going to stop? So every single day, you're going to get charged $20, $22, $23. So if you're on board for 7, 14, 20 plus nights, it's literally hundreds and hundreds and even thousands of dollars in some instances. They cover all that on Regent in your upfront price. They're going to tip all the room staff, the wait staff, the bar staff, and they really do tip them. I mean, that's why you're paying more to get on Regent because that's included in your price. Now, a lot of people say, Shawn, should I tip extra if the staff is great? I've never been on a Regent cruise where the staff wasn't awesome. I mean, they don't just say, there's the bathroom. They walk you to the bathroom and, show you where it is. And, there's a lot more. I think it's like just over, is it 1.1 or 1.2? There's a staff member for every 1.1 or 1.2 guests. On the big ships, it's like 1 staff member for every 3 guests. The point is, there's so much staff. They're so great. So they're always wonderful. So what I do personally, if I love the staff, and I have every time, I'll actually put some money into what they call the crew welfare fund. That's, a fund for their parties or when they get off the ship to go do things and that kind of thing. So I usually do that. I'll give a little bit extra to everybody if they're fabulous, which they always are. I don't feel obligated to do that, but my point is, if you want to give extra, you could think about that. Or if you really love a staff member, sure, go ahead and tip them. They're not going to say no, but the point is, they really do tip everybody, in your price. So don't worry about it. If you feel like the service was great and you were satisfied, and you don't feel you need to tip extra, don't worry about it. It's all included, which is a great perk. The next thing I want to talk about is, let's look at the spa. Now, actually, here, a couple of things they don't include real quickly. No, they're not going to include your massages. No, they're not going to include things you buy at the shop. But don't worry. I mean, I know my clients anyway. Usually my clients will get hundreds of dollars of free onboard spending money, from me as a perk. I'm sure your travel agent does as well. If you book direct, you're not going to get those perks because, you got to work with a travel agent to get the extra perks, which is why so many people work with agents. But the point is, or sometimes a lot of my clients, maybe 10 or 15% of Regent's cruises every year, I can get at a discount. They're unpublished rates, so I never know when they're coming. My clients know to talk to me about that. If so, then I'm not going to have onboard credit. But the point is, there's always a perk to booking with me. And I'm bringing that up because, like I said, they're not going to include massages or the stuff at the shops. But usually, you're going to have hundreds of dollars from your agent, especially if you're my client, to spend at those places. And if you don't have credit, it's because you got a better price. So the point is, there's going to be something there. So that's a couple of things they don't include. But back to the spa, this is one of my favorite things. I was on the Regent Explorer in Australia for 17 nights a while back. And at the very back of the spa, they have this beautiful heated, big pool, hot tub, heated beds, beautiful area to relax and hang out. I call it the thermal suite at the spa. Cruise lines charge $20, $30, $40, $50 a day for that. They don't charge anything on Regent. So I was so impressed that that was something that you didn't have to pay for, because I always pay for that when I'm on ships. And again, it's hundreds of dollars each week, but I never had to pay an extra dime. So again, at the spa itself, yes, you're going to pay for massages. You'll probably have credit for that, but the point is the thermal suite, that's going to be included. Now this is on their newer ships, the Regent Explorer. By the way, Regent has an Explorer, EXPLORER ship, and then there's also a cruise line called Explora, EXPLORA. So you might think I'm saying the same thing, but I'm not. So hopefully I'm not mixing you up there. But the Regent Explorer and Splendor and Grandeur have that thermal suite at the back, which is absolutely gorgeous. Now another thing that I loved, especially when I was on the 17-night cruise, is laundry. They literally did my laundry all the time. And I don't mean here's self-service laundry for free. I mean, they literally picked up my laundry and did it. It came back, on hangers, the stuff that needed to be ironed. The other thing was anything that had to be folded. No kidding, they folded it. They put tissue paper around it in this like little reusable box. It was so nice, such a prosperous feeling. So again, I never had to worry about, overpacking or anything like that, because they were doing laundries. And I mean, this is unlimited. There's no limits on this. It was absolutely fabulous. So like I said, just to recap on board, everyone's going to get a veranda unless you're on the old Navigator, which won't even be a thing soon. Everyone's going to have drinks included, all your meals, specialty dining included, room service included. You're going to get at least 2 Wi-Fi logins for your room, 4 or more if you do a concierge room or higher. All gratuities for the staff. You're going to get that area in the spa included. I call it the thermal suite, and you're going to get your laundry done. So that's everything on the ship. But Regent also includes a couple of things off the ship, which I want to talk about as well. Now, first of all, we'll talk about, remember I mentioned the concierge room or higher? So like concierge room is like a regular veranda room, but comes with extra perks. And then there's bigger rooms, penthouses, master suites, grand suites, signature suites, the Regent suite. There's a lot of options on Regent. So if you do a concierge or higher, one of the perks you're going to get with Regent is you're going to get an included hotel night at the city you're starting at the night before the cruise. So I don't know, let's say, you guys all probably know I'm in Vancouver. A lot of Alaska cruises go from here. You'll get a Vancouver hotel, and then the next day you'll get on a Vancouver ship and you'll cruise up to Alaska. Great perk, because you never, ever want to arrive to your cruise port the day of. If your flight is late, which they often are, and you miss your ship, you're going to have to catch up and spend hundreds of dollars, if not thousands, to get to your ship. You're going to ruin your trip. Also, even if you get there on time, you're going to be too tired to enjoy your first night. You'll be half asleep at your first dinner that you spent probably tens of thousands of dollars on. So never get in the day of. I mean, I get to my cruise ports at least a day early, if not 2 or 3. I've gotten to some ports a week early just to relax and hang out, especially if it's a major city. Point being, if you do a concierge or higher, Regent is going to include that one night. Great perk, and you got to have that included. Now, one other thing I want to talk about the concierge as well, and this is why all my clients usually do a concierge or higher. I mentioned that you're going to get the 4 logins. I mentioned you're going to get the hotel. And there's a few other perks as well. They're kind of more minor in my mind. But another big perk, which is important for my clients and also me, I'm always in usually a concierge or a penthouse when I'm on Regent, is you get to book your specialty dining earlier. So when I talked about the French restaurant, the steakhouse, and the, the Asian restaurant, basically, everyone's guaranteed to go in those, and you get to make 1 reservation per room before you get on the ship. But what happens is you make the reservations dependent on your room. So what I mean is, like, the top suites are going to make the reservations first. I think the penthouses go next, then the concierge rooms, and then everyone who's in the regular balconies. So in my experience, and again, I've booked almost $100 million worth of cruises, millions of dollars that I've been on Regent, and I've cruised on them a few times. So I really have seen this again and again. If you don't book a concierge room for the specialty dining, you're usually going to get to pick like an 8:30 or 9 o'clock dining time, and that's it. That doesn't work for most of my clients or me. I like to eat about 6 or 7 o'clock. So if you don't want to eat late and you're in a regular balcony room, you're almost for sure going to get an 8:30, 9 o'clock dining time. Now, if you have a concierge or higher, you'll get to book earlier. And what happens is, you want to book right away. And, if I'm your agent a week before, I'm going to say, hey guys, don't forget, your dining opens next week, book immediately. But as long as you're booked right away, you can probably usually then get a 6:30, 7 o'clock time. So if that's important, keep that in mind, which again is the concierge rooms. Now, the last thing I want to talk about with Regent, and this is one that confuses a lot of my clients, is shore excursions. They do include a lot of shore excursions off of the ship. And they say they're unlimited, and a lot of people don't know what that means. So what they mean by unlimited is, if you can fit more than 1 in a day, you can absolutely do more than 1. So I'll give you an example. I was in Shanghai once with Regent, and I did an excursion in the morning, no cost. Went back to the ship, had lunch, Did another one in the afternoon, no cost. Went back to the ship, had dinner. That night, went back out. We saw the Chinese acrobats, no cost. Literally 3 excursions in one day for no extra cost. It was already included in the price, which was really awesome. So if there's time in your port to do a couple of included excursions, that's what they mean by unlimited. Now, with that said, unlimited doesn't mean that they include every single excursion. Some excursions out there, if you're going to take a helicopter and land on a glacier to go see, dog sleds in Alaska, that might be $500, $600, $700 a person. That's not included in your price. I mean, their prices will be out of touch if they included, those kind of things. So in my experience, if an excursion is like normally say $200 or less, it's probably going to be included in your price. If it's more than that, you're going to have to pay for at least some of that. So here's some real numbers. I was just looking, I mentioned Alaska a couple of times, and this is the reason I wanted to bring up Alaska, because it's a short itinerary. It's only 7 days. A lot of regions itineraries, like I did, are 17 days, 20 days, 30 days, and more. But the point is, in a 7-day trip here with Regent, they had 4 port stops, and I'm looking at the excursions. They have 102 excursions, so 102. 39 of those are included in the price. So that's 38% of those excursions. 63 of them you got to pay extra for. So 62% you have to pay extra for. So like I said, they're not all free. Again, 38% are included, 62% aren't. But here's what I like about Regent. At each port, on average, because you think about it, there's 102 excursions, over 4 ports. And like I said, 39 of those were included. So basically 40 were included almost, 4 ports. That's 10 choices per port that are included. So here's why I like that. I'll give an example. Viking Ocean Cruises, who's a step down from Regent, really great cruise line. I have tons of clients go on them as well. But they say they include an excursion in each port, but they only include one, and it's usually really basic. So my clients usually have to pay extra for a lot of excursions on Viking. I had some clients go to Alaska just a few weeks ago. $3,400 extra is what they spent at 6 ports over a 10-night cruise. Now with my Regent clients, say on an Alaska cruise, I find they might spend hundreds extra, not thousands. Reason being, there's 10 included choices per port. So when I say Regent is at the cream of the crop of cruises, because again, they're a step up from someone like Viking because they are more inclusive. So again, not all included excursions, but 10 choices per port is pretty good. But again, the point is, maybe budget a little bit extra for excursions. Don't be shocked when you look at the list, and you might like some of the excursions that have a price. So I just kind of want to give you that warning. So anyway, hopefully this was valuable to you. I covered everything that was included on the ship, off the ship. I probably forgot something. If so, leave a comment. If you have any other questions, leave a comment, or just go to my site at shawnpower.com and let me know how else I can help, what other questions I can answer for you. Beyond that, we'll talk to you in the next video, and have a great day. Bye-bye.